So we've known this for a long time, but this kind of puts an actual figure to the phenomena. Nearly 90% of UN aid is intercepted before reaching intended recipients. The majority of aid sent to Gaza by the United Nations has been intercepted before reaching its intended destination. 87% of the UN's aid trucks collected from Gaza's perimeter have been intercepted during transit inside the Strip, according to UN's own data. Tracking between May 19th and August 1st shows that of the 2,010 trucks collected from the Gaza perimeter, only 260 trucks reached their intended destination. UN 2720 states that the interceptions have occurred either peacefully by hungry people or forcefully by armed actors, while aid was being transported inside Gaza. The monitoring site has not provided a breakdown of how much aid has been taken peacefully by civilians versus how much has been seized by armed groups. We've known that Hamas comes in and steals this aid and then redistributes it or sells it for their own cynical purposes. We've known that they've done that for a long time. I'd be interested to know exactly what percentage of it is that and what percentage of it is like the trucks coming across a group of starving people and needing to stop and provide them food rather than go the extra couple kilometers to another place or whatever. That shouldn't be surprising either, though, especially with the sheer amount of chaos that I understand is going on in Gaza. That you have refugee camps where you have hundreds of thousands of people collected, but like it is a huge area and you're talking about millions of people, and inevitably you're going to have pockets of people that are just like, for whatever reason, have not made themselves to the major aid distribution points, and that these trucks will come across groups of people who are probably just like stopping them forcefully to try and get food. And I don't blame them, right? I mean, if you're part of one of these groups who's in the middle of the desert in Gaza and you're kilometers away from the nearest aid distribution point, and your only opportunity to keep yourself from starving to death is potentially stopping one of these trucks, that seems totally reasonable to me. I think most people would do the same. The vast majority of the intercepted trucks, 90%, were operated by the UN's World Food Program. The dashboard also reveals that a significant amount of aid offloaded at Gaza's perimeter has not been collected. While over 40,000 tons of aid were delivered to the crossings, only 27,000 tons have been picked up. In terms of trucks, 2,100 have reached the perimeter, with 2,010 crossing into Gaza. Israel has criticized the UN for failing to collect and distribute aid effectively inside Gaza. The UN has rejected this accusation, claiming last month that Israeli authorities have denied a large proportion of aid collection and distribution requests. It also cited logistical and administrative hurdles, as well as ongoing hostilities, which have limited their ability to deliver aid inside the Strip. This week, the UN reported nearly 1,400 Gazans have been killed while seeking food since late May. On Thursday, UN's Human Rights Office said that since May 27th, at least 1,300 Palestinians have been killed while trying to get food aid in Gaza. According to the UN, at least 859 of the deaths occurred in the vicinity of one of the 4 distribution centers operated by the controversial Israel and US-backed Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. The UNHCR has alleged that most of those killed seeking food were shot by Israeli forces. While acknowledging the presence of other armed groups in the area, the UN says it does not have information indicating their involvement in these killings. Okay, so it shouldn't surprise me. We're getting really in the weeds here, and this is all pretty nasty, people starving type stuff. But like, it shouldn't be surprising that at least some people are shot in this sort of way, right? If you have tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people gathered at a food aid distribution center, they're all on the verge of starving to death, and then you only have a certain limited number of trucks come in, and not everybody is going to be able to get their aid, get the food that they need. It does not surprise me that like it could turn violent, that people, start fighting each other. So they start fighting with the aid distributors. They start trying to take what they take more than they are being given, or take what they aren't being given. That shouldn't surprise me at all. And it doesn't surprise me that at least some people died in the process of this. Now, 859 sounds like a lot. Maybe there are enough circumstances. Maybe I'm underestimating the scale at which this kind of thing can happen. But it doesn't surprise me too much that at least there's some amount of that going on. I'm not downplaying. I'm sure there are some. I've seen some pretty crazy videos of Israeli snipers like laughing basically as they're they've got some random civilian in their scope or whatever. So like I definitely would believe that there are some cynical elements in this, and that a number of those deaths, if not a majority, it's really hard to speculate how much, but at least some portion of those deaths were not necessary, and they were because, racist, xenophobic people. The UNHCR stated that it has no information suggesting the Palestinians killed were directly participating in hostilities or posed any threat to Israeli security forces. Okay, but this is where I would give them a tiny bit of deference, right? I'm not saying there are definitely xenophobes and racists and anti-Islam people in the Israeli military. Certainly, okay? But to get to the point that you're shooting large swaths of people, I think there has to be at least some level of plausible deniability. And at least so to say that there's no information suggesting the Palestinians killed were directly participating in hostilities or posed any threat to Israeli security forces, I would have a really, really hard time believing that all 859 of those deaths that they're referring to, none of them were doing anything hostile or doing anything to threaten security forces or were doing anything, they were just completely innocent bystanders and they were shot for absolutely no reason. The implication that that is the case for all of them is very weird, and my gut tells me is wrong. I would speculate is wrong. Huge crowds inside Gaza appear to be regularly overwhelming the delivery trucks before they can reach their destinations. In scenes from Gaza on Wednesday, which were reported by the Washington Post, WFP trucks were intercepted by a mass crowd shortly after crossing a checkpoint. The report described hundreds of thousands of people seeking aid waiting along the Al-Rashid Street, who surged towards the convoy. As they approached within 100 meters of the aid trucks, reportedly opened fire. The UN convoy was overrun with all 47 trucks ransacked. Israeli military stated it had fired warning shots to keep the crowd away and was unaware of any casualties. However, a UN report claimed that more than 50 people were killed. The chaos around aid distribution in the Strip comes amid more reports of starvation from inside Gaza. The Integrated Food Security Phase classification said Gaza has teetered on the brink of famine for 2 years, but recent developments have dramatically worsened the situation, including increasingly stringent blockades by Israel. In an alert on Tuesday, which fell short of a formal famine declaration, the IPC warned that the worst-case scenario of famine is currently playing out in the Gaza Strip, predicting widespread death without immediate action. The international pressure led Israel to announce measures to increase aid flow into the Strip, including daily humanitarian pauses in fighting in parts of Gaza and airdrops of supplies. So yeah, we've known Hamas has done this for a long time, that at least some portion of the trucks coming in are being stolen by armed groups and being redistributed or sold to the Palestinian people cynically by Hamas. So we've known that for a long time, and that doesn't really take any deep level of introspection or speculation to get to that point. It's also not surprising at all that a huge portion of these trucks are being intercepted by groups of starving people before they ever reach their proper aid distribution sites. And it also doesn't surprise me as well that a bunch of Palestinians have ended up getting killed in this whole process by trying to get more food than they're being given, trying to stop trucks for whatever legitimate human-based reason. They're starving and they're just trying to get food, or whatever the reason may be, they're being killed because of the chaos of all of this, because there isn't enough aid being provided, because there isn't because everybody's sort of being treated like cattle. None of this is surprising whatsoever, and I'm glad to see. So I didn't officially see that that Israel had removed its blockade. I thought the blockade they put in March for all humanitarian aid was still in place. So the fact that they released it in May, or when it May, I think they said they stopped it in May, is a good thing. But it seems like that they're still being extremely restrictive over what can come in. I mean, they said, it said the UN has rejected this accusation, claiming last month that Israeli authorities have denied a large portion of aid collection and distribution requests. So it seems that even though they have removed the humanitarian aid blockade that they put in place in March, that basically the policy is still in place to some degree, because they're just denying huge swaths of the aid collection and distribution requests. None of this is surprising at all. Hamas are not good faith actors. That should not be surprising to anybody. Yeah, this is all really bad, and the international community needs to step in and do something to ensure that we don't have some mass starvation. And what I can't help but think about is whether a mass starvation coming up or a mass ethnic cleansing coming up happens or not, I just cannot imagine let's say, whether it happens or not, 30 years, 10, 20, 30 years from now, Israel has reclaimed huge swaths of Gaza and are building apartment complexes and stuff along the beach or whatever. I just like, how could you not feel nasty being somebody that's profiting off of all of that, right? Being one of the real estate developers or being one of the people that lays claim to the land and gets to sell it for your own personal gain and at the expense of the thousands, tens of thousands of people who died on this land at the hands of, Hamas and Israel. So like, it's just, I don't know. This, the international community needs to come in and do something before this turns into a really big mess. I mean, it already is a really big mess before it turns into a really historically like, oh my God, you just did another Holocaust type mess.